Kevin, good to have you on here, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man.
I see the Leonard Bernstein poster above you. Some good flavor to put into this immediately.
Oh yeah, I thought I'd get him in there, and little shout out to Lenny.
Letty, you guys were close. You would
Yeah,
you
we
would
were
call
we
him
were
one.
real buddies. Yeah, we had a brief affair back in the day. It was great.
Right. And it was a time of your life, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, he was a gentle man.
Generous lover, I've
Yeah,
heard.
well, I was gonna say that. I didn't know if that was a little.
Are you able to pinpoint what really piqued your interest in music to the earliest of your recollection?
Well, my earliest memory with music was actually I had a trampoline as a kid, like a lot of suburban kids,
Good
and
start. Good start to music.
yeah, yeah. I used to lay on the trampoline with my I had a gel pen and a black little notebook, like the kind of with the colored gel pen. And I remember I used to sing this song by the band Sum 41, and I would rewrite the lyrics, and it was kind of an early interpolation, an early ripoff of something I liked. And it wasn't until, like, honestly, the last like 4 or 5 years did that memory kind of feel relevant to what my modern catalog has become, of kind of uh, finding ways to taking things I like and sort of it kind of sums up some of what I've become, of a sort of I don't want to say a thief, but a sort of a person who is does not shy away from uh, music as a tradition versus trying to completely reinvent the wheel with every song. Uh, so that's kind of an early memory that springs to mind, at least from a songwriting standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. That's kind of one, and it's funny because that's a pretty like recent, not recent, the last few years that kind of memory came back to me, and it kind of tied my modern, like, oh, that makes sense why I still do it like that, why I'm still like this.
hmm
But yeah.
Looking back on it, do you feel like that was the best way to get introduced to making music?
I don't know. It certainly informed a certain brain as a kid for songwriting, in a way of not shying away. Like, it makes it, to me, to my knowledge now, it feels like it showed that when I was a kid I wasn't afraid of what people I liked were doing enough that it intimidated me from trying. Instead, it made me kind of step up to the plate a little bit and think, okay, if they're doing it like this, maybe I can do it like that, but I can do it my way. Now, obviously, there's a fine line of just ripping off someone's music, and I think the challenge of that whole kind of thing is finding ways that you know how to kind of shift a sort of influence or a reference and make it where it's not a problem, and it's
A,
and it's
a
obviously not.
blatant carbon copy, if you will. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
How I can steal creatively. I think that's what separates a lot of the people who, when I hear them doing something and you can put them in a box, oh, they're just doing this, or they're just doing that kind of thing. I think the people that do it well, like, say, like Bob Dylan, who's kind of in the middle there, where you can say, oh, he's just doing that for some stuff that he's doing, and other things it's like he completely does his own version of it. There's this weird gray area of the tradition where it's like some people love, oh, that sounds just like George Harrison, right? Like, there's certain artists where someone will say that, and there's a fine line of it being like a pastiche where you're putting in a box, and another thing where they start to have their own gravity. So it's kind of, I think, at a young age, my the sort of fearlessness of being okay with stealing someone's idea was something that now I think about, like, maybe when you're young, the idea of writing a song seems so far away from the possible. But for me as a kid, I didn't realize it, but I was kind of willing to uh, start that journey, even if it meant something that at the time was like, yeah, not wholly original. Uh,
Mhm.
but it was kind of about getting my foot in the door, I guess.
Did that make it difficult for you ever to find your own voice within music? Did these sort of influences kinda cloud the idea of, "Oh, this is who I am as a musician?"
That's a good question. You know, for lack of a better example of somebody that said something wise, the genius philosopher Jonathan Mayer uh, once said, I remember hearing this very young, and I remember thinking of it as a pretty wise thing. I think he said, "It's your failure to sound like your heroes that makes you to sound like yourself." And I think there's something in there that maybe he didn't even realize, but there's something in there that I always thought was. I think I heard that when I was in like end of high school, early college, before I long before I started making music for Rubber Band Gun. But I feel like that's important, and you know, it's the expectation of like being wholly original is a little bit overrated. I kind of love the idea of music being tradition, and I love the idea that like you know you find something. I mean, great filmmakers rip off each other, you know, and I think the challenge is doing it in a way that doesn't distract the whole time. So it's kind of this weird tightrope walk doing that. I do think that you know when I hear somebody that is wholly new and original, um, it's something usually that isn't something I kind of want to do, to be honest. Like it's something that's so experimental or so outside that it doesn't really grab me. But for instance, if I hear like Cameron Winter's great record that he put out end of last year, you know, you can immediately hear the Leonard Cohen, you can hear some of the Dylan, you can hear some of a lot of artists that I could tell that he was kind of, I wouldn't say emulating, but he was kind of rubbing elbows with. So I think it's tough. I like when you can find somebody that finds a way to be a new version of something without it being pastiche, without it being something you could put in a box. That's kind of where I find music because it's we're all working within the same, you know, chords for the most part, and it's I think that's the tough challenge when you can find something that's like original, but it feels familiar. I think people like Cindy Lee did that very well on their last record. A lot of modern artists I love. It's like this weird familiarity of like something that's been done, but something that's new. Um, and I think just like the idea of it being like new genre, completely new thing, excites a lot of people. I'm a little more interested in the traditional aspect of it personally.
Mhm. Are the aspects of music that interested you to your earliest recollection still the aspects that interest you now in music? Is that still what you're looking for?
Um, I to some degree, yeah. I started out making songs, thinking less about recording, and now recording is more so my job than anything else. Whether it's well, I guess mixing is also post production work is too. But I songwriting and song form and arranging is what I've been kind of studying in and out of school for as long as I can remember. Like the kind of last thing I thought I'd be doing for a living was recording and engineering. Um, I have not really had any sort of training in that aspect. It's been just a long road of making my own records, making other people's records that has led me to that. I used to demo things in high school, and in hindsight, some of the demos I did were better than a lot of the times I went into the studio at the time, like whether it was like a local studio or something in New York, I would go in and in hindsight, the demos had such a charm to them that I didn't realize. I think I've gravitated towards that too, a lot of home recording kind of stuff. But yeah, I really wouldn't expect me to be in this situation where I'm doing a lot more helping people get their records finished. just because I've finished my own records so often that it kind of has become natural for me to help people see it through, and kind of find a way to get it to a place where they're not just so sick of it. But yeah, I didn't really, I thought I'd be a little bit more, if I had to guess when I was a kid, more in the realm of like writing songs for other people, which I've done some of that as well. But yeah, it certainly has turned into a different kind of engineering turn than I thought for sure.
In terms of learning new skill sets or just understanding more, do you feel like you've gained more insight outside of an academic way of looking at and approaching music rather than working in a different capacity with a band or just by yourself or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think it's like music for me is kind of a guess and check thing. Um, a lot of people I went to school with, they learned where to put the mic, they learned blah blah blah, they learned how, all the important things you want to know in audio engineering. And while they were doing that, I was learning stuff about song form and arranging for strings and stuff like that. And so, from an academic standpoint, um, the irony is that a lot of the people that I know that studied engineering at school, a lot of them are doing things outside of recording, and sometimes many of them outside of engineering altogether. And so it is kind of funny that I ended up in this kind of boat. I think a lot of what I've done to get better at it is the not knowing, has allowed me to kind of figure it out my way. Because when people used to tell me when I lived in Boston how to do something recording wise, it would kind of uh it would kind of irk me, the idea that there was a right way. I like to kind of just, I'm a big, like, kind of, when it comes to engineering, this is not scientific at all. I'm a big fate guy. Like, if it's fate, if I put something there, it feels like, and it works, it feels like fate. If I, if something happens that just happens, it's a lot of that. It's not as much control as I think I find some engineers trying to do. I don't put up a lot of microphones. I don't do a lot of takes. I don't do a lot of, tweaking kind of stuff. It's not really where my attention is. And so I feel like my skills of it have been just letting things happen and things that excite me. And if it comes out, like if I put the mic there and it comes out good, it's that's I'm lucky. So
Hmm. Yeah, how much of not only on the engineering side of things, but in your own right, working on whatever it may be on stage in a studio, how much of it is feeling rather than technically this is incorrect, although it's producing the sound that I want, but it's just technically incorrect or it's going against the guidelines of whatever it may be.
yeah, the technique to me comes from trying to figure out when the feeling is good. So to me, it's like the technique comes in when the feeling is guiding me. Like, say I hear a song that I really like, um, I can listen to the song once or twice and figure out, oh, okay, the song is, they're going from a minor two chord to a six chord to a five chord, and they're just looping that over and over, or and I can figure that out pretty quickly through my training. And I think that's, to me, where the technique comes into play. It's kind of like learning the language a little bit. It's not even necessarily about reading music or anything. There's more just the ability to find out what I like. um, I might be like, oh, the vocal melody is the ninth degree over the one chord. I don't think necessarily it was numbers that much, but I think if I really need to listen to something and I can figure it out really quickly, and then that can inform my decision of how I want to take that information. It's kind of like cooking or something. It's like if I see the recipe, I can figure out what ingredients I have, and I can figure out how to make it work for me and what my palate is like. But for some people, it feels so far off. Like when they hear something they like, they can't figure out what they like. Um, and it almost just feels like magic. And in a way, sometimes it's ruined my ability to enjoy certain things, because sometimes I'm like listening very actively where it's not recreational. It's almost like work, and so it's kind of can be tough to separate those two. But yeah, I feel like the level of like technique, um, a lot post my college experience was also like, I don't want to say dumbing down my technique, but like kind of uh, forgetting some of the stuff purposefully that they wanted me to do. Uh, Now they weren't like they weren't like pushy about things being perfect. They didn't drill that kind of stuff into you, but there's certainly stuff that I didn't want to come out in my playing that was maybe a little bit nicer, that I wanted to jump, that the artists that I listened to at the time especially were the opposite of that. And I wanted to find a way to be myself, but also have elements that I liked from those artists to come through in my playing as well. So technique is tough. I think learning things about music doesn't inherently make you say uncreative or uninspired. But again, it's a little bit more about speaking the language and figuring out, okay, I know, I hear what he's doing. Because you have people like Todd Rundgren who were very, he knew pretty well uh, about, I mean, I don't know, I'm not about music theory, but he was pretty hip to it compared to someone like the Beatles who they barely knew what chords they were playing. So I think there's kind of the long spectrum of that, where technique doesn't hinder you. I mean, people like Robert Fripp who like incredible technique, but doesn't stop him from sounding creative in a way. So I think I found a weird little balance for sure.
Are you more gravitated towards people who are technically proficient rather than people who purely go off of feeling, like Marvin Gaye or somebody like that?
I think I tend to gravitate towards feeling. I think, at the same time, I hear one of my favorite guitar players is Ry Cooder, who was as people say, he was incapable of guitar cliche with his playing. You listen to his playing, and you can't tell because it's not like he doesn't have technique. He's got incredible technique, but there's so much feeling. It's like the perfect mix of the two. Or someone like Jimmy Page, who in the studio, incredible technique and feeling, but then you watch and hear him live. I saw a video the other day of someone describing Jimmy Page's live sound as brown, and I thought that's a pretty good apt term for his live sound. It's so brown, like it's like sloppy, and I mean, obviously he was on a lot of like heroin and stuff, so I mean that's a culprit as well. But like his sound had so much less technique. I don't want to say less technique, but it was like the feeling ratio of technique was so much more feeling based live in a way that for some was too much. Like it was just like borderline, technique out the window. He was just like, I mean, his guitar was at his knees, and he's like. So I think it's tough. I think there's a balance you can strike. I think Ry Cooder is a good example though of like somebody where it's the technique and the feeling are there in ways that doesn't sound like he's playing scales or he's playing things that are academic or stuff like that. There's so much life in his playing, and so he's kind of a rare one where it's he's like 50-50, but it doesn't feel like it's almost like 100 and 100. There's no sacrifice. So it could be tough, but I think I tend to look for artists that you know what? I think I tend to look for artists that are like a little bit more feeling, because I can tell when I've played with enough people and heard enough people that have techniques so far that it's kind of lifeless. I've heard enough of that that I would much rather somebody that's just punching the guitar, without any sort of technique. So
In terms of people that you really enjoyed, um, leading up to getting more professional, quote unquote, or proficient in music, who were some people that you really gravitated towards or just liked their sound, even if it wasn't something that you were interested in making? You're just like, I just like that because of the way it sounds.
Or like artists you're talking about?
Artists or albums.
Besides all the people that, I mean, the people I've been lucky enough to collaborate with in my last few decades, have I've been very lucky as far as and all those artists that I've been able to work with have the kind of mix that I've wanted of those two things. As far as like big artists and people that I really, I've always loved like, I grew up listening to Springsteen, and I think, still I listen to some of those records, and the like weight and the size that that band and that guy can get from rock music still feels like unobtainable. Like I listened to that new Geese record, and I really love that new Geese record. I think it's fantastic. And bands like that, I have great sound. Also, I think when it back to Springsteen, I think something he does, he has such feeling. Like he's a guy that like he doesn't have the technique of Ryan Cooder, doesn't, especially his guitar playing. Voice wise, I mean, geez, it's like I can't think of an artist with more like feeling and just life behind a voice. I mean, especially because how long he's been doing it. And then you hear something like Nebraska or something that's quieter, and how much restraint he has. I mean, he's just, to me, he's one of the most perfect artists. And I don't really, I've listened to Springsteen to death. I don't really feel like I listen to him as much as I used to. Um,
And do you perceive that to be a good thing or a bad thing that you've stepped back from listening to him so much?
well, maybe a good thing. I think sometimes, we go through these phases, and I'm somebody where it's like, I if you show me an artist that I connect with, I will railroad you, and like them 10 times harder than you will like them. And a week later, I'll be like sending you texts about like, like I will bury you in text message about how much I like something and why it hits me. And it's rare that nowadays that like an example would be like, I think it was 2 years ago, I started listening to the Roaches for the first time, the sisters from New Jersey. And man, did I just like delve so deep into their catalog, into Maggie's original work with her sister, and just I, artists like that. When something connects with me, I will just like completely go into it way too hard. I think we all though need some like certain artists that we know so well. We all need to take time away from them so that we remember what they are. I think artists for me that example of would be like Paul Simon and Prince. And even frankly the Beatles. Like I'll step back from them for months, and then when it's almost like you're stepping. It's like you're like not having pizza for a while, so you can eat it again and remember what it is. And I also think it makes me, like again, when I like my albums can be pretty, uh, they can change from different styles, and I kind of like just jumping around. And when I'm finishing one album, I'll be thinking about the next one while it's being done, sometimes while it's being made, and I'll be kind of, I love the idea that just the contrast almost to prevent any sort of boredom or getting too filled with it. I think it's the same thing for how I listen, where it's the jumping around kind of ability. But I'll really, there will be times where I'll like really dive into one and just get it, just like soak myself in it. And I think that, yeah, again, I think stepping away from certain influences as a musician, especially as you feel that you're maybe taking on a little bit too much of their what they give you, um, it's good to kind of say, okay, I'm going to put you on the shelf for a little bit, and I'm going to go over here and do something else. And some artists I know that like make great music, they can't seem to get away from that band. And it's like, man, this is like your fourth record you've made, and it still sounds like you're in this place, which isn't bad. It's not bad at all. I think it's like they know their strawberry ice cream, and people like strawberry ice cream. My fear as an artist is someone saying, okay, I know what you are. You're in this box here, and you go here on the shelf. I think that's a little bit of my fear. And I would much rather someone hate my record than have it be something that they know what it is and they can categorize it. I would much rather someone say, I hate that record. I like that record he did. I love that record. I like the idea that you have opinions. A lot of my people that listen to my music, they have opinions, strong opinions, and they'll be like, I hate this record you did. I'll be like, I love that. I love that you hate that. And you'll probably like the next one. You'll probably hate the next, it's like, I like that kind of talk.
Yeah, yeah, you really don't want to be pinned down.
No, I really don't. I really don't want to be. I don't want to be categorized in like Dewey Decimal System and put on the you're this thing. I really don't. I don't want that. And not saying I like jumping around genres just for the sake of being elusive, but
You are elusive though, Kevin. I'm just gonna say that right now.
yeah, you can't hold me down, man. I'm always running.
In terms of um how you look at your own music, how do you describe it for yourself? Or if somebody else would ask that question, what kind of music do you make? How do you go about answering that?
I like I like saying rock and roll. That's what I say. I don't like saying rock. To me, rock with a capital R is like Dave Grohl or something. It's like Foo Fighters is like rock. Rock and roll to me is like music that I find has a steady amount of tradition. There's an amount of understanding of what came before it. There's a respect to this sort of legacy of where we came from. And I think that you know the ability to describe your own music can be tough. I always think of my music, and I like to think of it like almost like comic books or something, where it's they kind of keep coming at you, and you might not be a comic guy, but there's probably one comic that you would find that you would like. And I think about that with my music as well. I think not everybody is going to like my discography, but I think that there's one album within my I think I have like now I have 80 releases on Bandcamp. I think there's something on there that anybody would like. Now you might need to do some digging the same way that if you're at a record store, you might need to dig through to find something, or if you're at a comic book store, you might need to spend some time. But I think in the age of like playlisting where we're just being like we have this like matrix hose to our face of just shit that's coming in, it's like I think once in a while, if we find an artist that we respect and trust, almost like having like a filmmaker where you respect that they've put this much time into this. They have morals, they have maybe they have a respect of the art form. I think that it's like I mean I'm not comparing myself to like Scorsese, but like I think
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do
yeah,
it,
you
Kevin.
can do it.
Yeah.
When you have someone like that and you go through his like filmography, you might not like all of them. I think there's something though that seeing how long he's been doing it, you can't help but like keep looking for something, knowing that he's trying. And I think that at the end of the day, I make music for myself. Like I make music that I want to hear, and my ADD keeps me from making maybe too few things. Um, but yeah, I feel like to answer the question I rambled on about, rock and roll is how I describe my music. It feels like no matter what genre I cover, even some of the more recent stuff that I've done, it's like more some of it, the new stuff that I've been doing now is like, I don't know, it's really out there. I don't even know how to really describe it. It's like, it's not electronic, but it's very different than say, uh, the record I just put out, Record Deal with God, which I think is more rock and roll typical. The new stuff that I had that's coming out next year is a little bit more out there, and I would still call that rock and roll. I mean, I think when I do the streaming site garbage stuff, I put alternative. I think that might be a more like actually descriptive, even though it's like so undescriptive. Alternative is like the most like vague thing ever to say. It's like alternative. It's not. It's just as useless. But I think I tend to use that because it feels also very um, yeah, all encompassing of people that are taking swings outside of regular rock, regular pop. It's a little bit of an attempt at something that's a little bit outside. So
That wasn't very descriptive, but you were working with Foxygen as a touring guitarist before Rubber Band Guns really started taking off, right?
so my early demos with Rubber Band Gun was what kind of got me into Foxygen. It was sort of a unofficial audition in a way, and I didn't realize that at the time. But yeah, that was, and then I made records, um, kind of between tours, and then when Star Power tour was over, I dove pretty deeply into doing what I've always really wanted to do, which was my own music.
So it was kind of a one hand washes the other in that in this sort of way of working on it in increments when you weren't working on something else.
Yeah, yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, that's pretty apt. Yeah.
Do you feel like that time away from working on Rubber Band Gun stuff helped you ultimately?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, over the years, I've done a lot of different tours with artists, and there's always a moment on tour where I realize this isn't what I want to be doing, touring, um, because touring is such an amazing part of being a musician, but it's so fleeting to me, and it's almost like being a chef or something. It's like you're working all the time for this one window of time where you get to be whatever you want to do, or you get to be, you get to be on display, you get to be judged, you get to be experienced. They eat it, and the night's over, and then it's gone, and that food's gone, and all you have is the memory. And it's like, yeah, you could do that a lot. I am in the business of writing cookbooks. That's what I want to do. I don't want to, I don't want to cook the food personally. Now that being said, I love it. It's great. Um, but there's a part of every tour I've done where I realize that there is this like vomit bile that is slowly building up that is my first and only love, which is kind of writing music. And it slowly builds up until it's like at my throat, and I'm like, I get done with tour, and literally there's been a couple albums I've done fresh off tour where I would write an album that night I get off the plane. I would write 4 or 5 songs. Or the week I get back, I have a week between window, and it would just all come out. And I think there's a value to that, as well. There's a value in the sort of pressure cooker style of letting your inspiration build, build, build. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of artists will bring recording equipment on their bus or in their van, or they'll bring something just to get it out. A lot of the situations I was in, that wasn't really my deal. I'm a little bit like, I need to kind of focus on what I'm doing. Now I multitask a lot when I'm working, but when I'm touring, it's like I'm not really in a writing mindset, and I have a hard time juggling the two. I'm thinking about where I'm going to go to the bathroom in an hour. I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat before the show. Like I'm thinking about, do I need to get the strings fixed? Or fixed, but fix my string. What the hell am I talking about? Do I need to get my, like I need to get my like gears set up or something? And the like want for that to be something special. Um, I don't really have the kind of mindset that I need to have for writing. So it's this kind of weird thing where I know some people can do both. A couple times in my life, maybe I've written a song in the van when I'm in the van, and I'll write some lyrics down that come something later. But rarely am I in the mindset where my best songwriting foot is forward. It's often that I'm just pent up, and I'm just like jonesing to stop. Because I love playing music live, and I mean with Foxygen especially, it was some of the the best and biggest shows I've been to or seen or been a part of, and it really started to feel like I've never really had what they call imposter syndrome. I've never really experienced that, but there's a feeling you get when you know you're your own artist, but you're part of a band whose success you didn't have anything to do with. There's some feeling there where you're essentially um, you're bringing someone's vision to life, and that's a big part of what your job is. You, but when you have people like applauding you for something that you didn't really do, that's the closest ever got to that sort of feeling where it feels like, okay, I would love to feel this for something that I really have built. Uh, Whereas again, the live thing, it's like it's a very different feeling, but still very very exciting and very, it did inform a lot of my recording in terms of the feeling, the build up, and then the eventual release kind of feeling.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you think that at least on a subconscious level that these artists that you've worked with in that capacity have impacted uh an album further down the
Oh
line to the
yeah,
next album? Yeah.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that this now I'm not trying to throw any shade towards artists I've worked with, but in a similar way with college, like I find college, a lot of that is like figuring out what you don't want to do, right? It's like narrowing down. You're trying stuff. You're like, oh, okay, I don't like doing this as much. I think with touring, it's similar where it's like it's not like I ran home and took those songs and made new songs, right? Like if anything, it's the opposite. Like I played these songs to death. Let me find out what my hands really want to say, because my hands have been doing this for an hour a night for 2 months, right, without break. Let me see what my heart wants to say. And one thing I'll say about live touring, which is tough, and nobody really talks about this. Like I've never heard anybody talk about this personally, is that when you're touring, like you're kind of playing your instrument maybe at most like 2 hours a day. I mean, obviously you could pick up your instrument in the van and you can play, but like you're not really stretching that muscle. Whereas when I'm working on a record here or I'm working with an artist, I could be playing guitar, drums, piano for like 6, 7 hours. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing this, is to play, to write, to create. I love well, I would say I love traveling. I like traveling. I've done a lot of it and I'm a little tired of traveling by now. But I really just want to play music and write music and work on it. So the idea of all of that other stuff, I would so much rather be at home in my studio just playing than all of what comes with the live kind of situation.
I don't believe that, Kevin, but that's fine, man. We're just gonna push forward. Um, no, so speaking on that, being in the studio and whatnot, you have your own studio,
Mm-hmm.
um, historic New Jersey,
Right.
right? Or is it historic NJ and it's usually
Uh,
abbreviated?
Historic New Jersey is, yeah, what I
Okay,
call it.
all right. I want to make sure, just straight out the gate, that I had that
Yeah,
correct.
controversial. Yeah.
It's very. When did you start that and say, okay, I need this place to experiment and be with instruments and craft these not only your own music but other people's music?
So I started recording people. Honestly, like I recorded my like long time like college girlfriend. This must have been like 2016. I recorded her album a long time ago, and that was my first time working with somebody in the sense of me doing what I do for myself for somebody else. And I thought that was a really important time to for me to kind of figure out how I work with somebody, and especially because I played all the instruments on it, and it was essentially me being the backing band for somebody, which I was kind of almost, well, I've done for all my records where I'm my own backing band, and except for some rare times where I've had collaborators kind of play. But then I started in, I think it was like 2018, maybe 2017. I started working with one of my frequent collaborators, Emily Moles, with the band Star Moles. She's one of the best songwriters I know, one of the best musicians, one of the best ears. She's an incredible talent. I found her demos online. I hit her up to record, and we made we've since then we've made I think 4 or 5 records. One new record, especially we've been making recently, that is I think one of the best records I've made, which will probably come out next year. We have a band called Hot Machine as well. That is a lot of fun. She's somebody that really, in a world of, I almost was going to throw some shade to the whole world of singers. I have a problem with people that sing in a sort of, how I describe it is like cursive. If you kind of know what I mean, when both girls and boys can do this, when they sing in this sort of cursive whisperiness, I don't know where it started. It's very prevalent in what people think is indie. Even though indie right now can mean like, I don't know, like you look up indie rock or indie on like iTunes and it's like Bon Iver is indie. It's like, I don't really think he's very independent anymore. I mean, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, that kind of stretch out to be a genre, just much like alternative. Um,
yeah, it doesn't really
it-
make sense. Like Phoebe Bridgers does not come across as indie to me personally. I mean, maybe it sounds like quaint or it sounds like twee. I don't know. I don't even know. Words for music can be like descriptions like that can just be used as, ways to get people to listen, obviously.
oh
But
yeah, definitely. I from my perspective, it seems like I feel like people get attached to that term indie music depending on who they play. They have played shows with, usually larger shows with. And if that person who's opening up or is middling or whatever it may be, or a festival of largely independent music, I feel like that kind of is like the gateway to be like, all right, now that person's in this sphere.
yeah, yeah. I think it also has to do with maybe if the label itself, like say like Secretly Canadian, who's like they view themselves, or not they view, I guess they are considered independent of say like Sony, where they could view themselves and use the term indie to represent their catalog. But when I hear certain, you know, to me, you know, like I don't know, like great bands like White Fence, like to me they feel independent, and it to me indie in that sense means that there's like it's like again like it's kind of like alternative where it's like there's a separation of church and state there. It's not even from a business standpoint. It's about how unique is this artist to what they're doing, how separate are they from say the machine of everything that's happening. Bands like Floating Action, they feel like indie to me. A lot of my friends that make music feel like they're indie. When I see Phoebe Bridgers, I doesn't really feel indie to me. When I see Bon Iver, doesn't feel indie. When I see people like this, like if you've been in the show Stranger Things, you're not indie. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to gatekeep indie, but like I hate the amount of times I've just said the word indie feels like I'm losing my fucking mind. Sorry to curse, but
Oh, hey, you can say whatever the
I can
heck
curse
you
here.
want.
Good.
Yeah,
We're not getting censored. Okay.
yeah, go ahead. I
I'm
mean,
not.
we'll probably get
I
censored,
feel like
but
I'm gatekeeping indie. I'm not doing that. All these listeners and viewers, I'm not gatekeeping it. I just feel like they are lying to you on the description to get you to think these people have a sort of charm. I think there are so many artists out there that's all they have is their independence. That's all they have is the ability that they're not signed to Sony. So to water that down to me by the Stranger Things kids or these people that like that do have like I don't know, I don't want to I'm not going to keep throwing shade at people, but I think that
no,
there's
no,
a
and I don't think you are. I think you're just saying your piece about this. It's not against anybody. This is just
no, I like all
this
those
is just
artists. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. It doesn't mean that they're bad or anything. You're just clarifying what you're saying here. And
yeah.
I do want to say this commercial, um, viability, I guess we could say,
Mhm.
regarding strictly ads. In this case, I've been hearing a lot more people who've been on this podcast, their music in advertisements, and I love that. That's awesome. I think
Yeah.
that it's great music because only great musicians are on here, Kevin, as you know.
Yeah, of course.
Um, Whole rosters filled with them. Uh, but hearing that, um, it's like I think that that's fantastic. But I think that in some people's sense of the word indie, which seems like that's just the umbrella term that everybody who's been on this podcast is in, um, to some of an extent, that success for music licensing takes that genre away from oh it's not indie anymore because
Yeah.
this person's music was in a such and such ad or it was licensed for so and so television, you know. And I hope that's not the case, or I hope people aren't
Yeah.
feeling that way. But maybe that's just an assumption that I've
No,
made.
no, no. I mean, I've had 6 or 7 syncs licensing of my own music. I mean,
Wow.
I've been in so many bars of alternative universes in the DC universe on CW. I've been in all kinds of weird. I was on How I Met Your Father or How I Met Your whatever the one with Hilary Duff. I had
Yeah.
songs in the background of that. I mean, I've been
Wow.
lucky with sync publishing in the last like 5, 6 years that but that doesn't in any way put me in the upper echelon of exposure. I think I was just lucky. I think all
That's
the artists
amazing though.
I've been
I mean
lucky. Yeah,
that is really awesome. What was the first one that came across your desk?
the first one I got, I think it was Superman and Lois. I think was the
Wow.
first one. I have a publisher, Rollo Grady, who's been doing it for the last like 4 years. And they've been really great to me. The sync licensing world's getting tough, though. Obviously, it's with AI and just people being cheap. That
Yeah.
the reps that I've talked to have it's been a little slower and it's been tough. And as AI is hitting kind of every sphere. I do think it's like it's one of those things that like well all the artists I saw on I briefly scrolled through your Instagram and I saw a lot of the artists that everyone I saw that I loved and I felt they do the artists that you chose to have on your show to me represent the side of independent music that I enjoy. John Andrews. I saw you had Chris Cohen on.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of those artists are people that I'm like these people again. I think independent is this might be a little sappy. It's like there's an amount of independence in the spirit of it that's less about the labels um the labels faculty and their abilities. It's more about the spirit of the people doing it. I think people like Kate LeBon feel independent to me. And it you know I think it comes with a lot of that. I think you had Sylvie. Sylvie's very, these
Oh
people.
yeah. Ben Schwab. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like people making music like that to me really represent what I love about the independent community.
Right.
And regardless of if they get in a Ford commercial, I think they're always going to do what they do. You know what I mean? I think once you make music for shopping, once you become Drake, you're no longer maybe representing what I think is about um, finding a way to do it yourself. A lot of the people that you had on there that I know of, like a lot of them are paying to make records out of their own pocket. And I think that is pretty important in today's world. Not to pay for your own records. I think that I wish people had more budget just to be able to do what they want to do. But I think the ability for them to have that independence is to me what represents the community.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you who haven't listened to those episodes that Kevin nicely reluctantly
Promotional.
reluctantly listened to before coming on here. Please go back and listen to all those great guests that he had mentioned. The great people. Yes, I like this because I've mentioned this before on this podcast, but this world of indie or whatever you want to call it is a smaller than that I once thought it was. Like this, John, and John
Yeah,
knows, you know, uh, Noah Bond or whatever,
yeah,
his
yeah,
drummer,
yeah. Amazing drummer.
and it just every yeah, of course. Um, but all these people know each other, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
I really enjoyed that aspect. It's like, oh well, I know such and such who's been on here. I'll do it, which is the main backbone of how this whole podcast got started up in the first place. Oh, I know such and such knows that person knows that person out of the 250 whatever episodes I've done.
Wow.
So
Wow, that's a lot. That's
it's a
great.
lot. It's a lot.
That's
And I
under on the mountain. That's great.
I can't do it without you, Kevin. You are another episode. I think 255 or
Wow,
6.
that's great.
But yeah, but I feel like it's because of these the mindsets of independent musicians.
Yeah.
It makes it special.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that's a benefit, and it's easier in a way, it's easier to make music now than ever. Even though there's more of it than ever. But I think that ability has given everybody a bit of a lift to at least see their vision through a little bit more. Um, and so I think, and again, I think that's a big part of the spirit of the community as well.
Absolutely. When did you start to open up the recording studio for other people, for like people that were making your kind of music, or people that you knew outside of your girlfriend, obviously, who were some other people that started coming around in the earlier
Ex
um
girlfriend now, also ex,
I'm sorry, ex-girlfriend.
way past.
See,
No,
that's me throwing a dart, and I apologize to her.
no, no, no. I don't. It's okay. I'm okay. I've healed since then.
Okay.
It's like a decade now. But yeah. So I think I think it was maybe funny enough. I think it was maybe 2019. Toward the end of 2019, I did this like big album challenge in 2019 with one of my friends, and I made
Yes.
a lot of music. 25 challenge
The 25 challenge. And who put you up to that? It was a member of
from
Foxygen,
Foxygen. That was Jonathan Rado. Yep, and
Jonathan Rado.
that was a really important part of Rubber Band Gun's kind of legacy, if I could say that. Like just like part of what I think the band stands for, and the group is. It's about um, well, there's a sort of variety that I think is has become in the sort of fun of what being a sort of rock musician can be. I think that album showed that the level of which you can do what you want to do, especially when you don't have anybody breathing down your neck to tell you what to do. That if you just do it, nobody's gonna stop you. But I think it was in 2019 that making so many records, I learned so much about recording that year, just from doing it over and over in my parents' house at the time. That's my parents' house, and in between tours and stuff. And it was toward the end of the year that I recorded a great record with another guy from Foxygen, Sam France. We recorded a record that is still one of my favorite records. And and I also recorded an album right before that with another great songwriter from the band Essential Forever. Both these albums were recorded in my parents' basement where all my stuff was set up. Then right after that, I recorded another guy who's another great songwriter, Jake Elijah. And those three kind of back to back within probably 2 months of each other really showed and proved to myself that I could do it. And they were all very different songwriters, but and all their records had a very unique sound based on where I felt that they should have been, or not should have been, where I wanted to go with their music, what I want their albums to sound like, maybe as well as their own. It was obviously very collaborative. It's not like I was, completely driving the ship. But those records were really seminal to me for my production. And then I also made a record with my friend Aria Gaston, who we made a record together that right after that. I remember talking to her at the time and being like, hearing about this was again that was February 2020. Her being like, I'm reading about this new disease that's going around, or this new virus. And I remember she's like, no, it's probably fine. And then I moved to Philly the next month, March 2020, and literally within a week of me being in Philly, about to open my townhouse studio, all getting it set up, pandemic hit and everything got shut down, and that delayed a lot of my stuff. But later in 2020, well, throughout 2020, I was doing a lot of post production work for people because a lot of people were recording at home during the pandemic, and so I was like, hey, I'll mix your record. I'll do this, I'll do this. And then toward the end of 2020, I started recording artists who would travel. I had some people that came from California, some people that came from Texas. One guy came from France at one point. Um, and I'm lucky where people that come to my studio, they know my records, maybe records that I've made with people. I haven't really had to advertise, uh, besides the occasional, hey, I'm booking 2 months out. Hit me up if you want to record. I've never put out like a Craigslist ad or like anything like that. I've never really done that kind of thing. But that was kind of the beginning of it. There were those 4 records I made probably in 3 months with just my friends. And that was a really important first step. Um, and at the time I used to make records a lot different too. I used to make them only on tape. So I would record them on my multi-track, 16-track reel to reel, and we would do say a week recording. We would record it all on tape and then mix it off tape in stereo. So there'd be no computer stems, there'd be no plugins, there'd be no blah blah blah. It would just come off tape. We would mix it on the board, and what came off tape would be the song, and then we would master it separately. But it made the process a lot quicker. Nowadays, I do a bit of a hybrid thing where we'll do it on tape, but I'll get the multi tracks off tape into the computer, and we'll mix there. Occasionally, if I'm feeling like it, we'll do it the old way, or we'll mix it off tape. But obviously, it's less flexibility to like get it really honed in. I don't even have a preference to the two though. I really love doing it the old way because it's just like it feels like very much in the moment, and you're not just tweaking little things from weeks. But that was the big first step, and that informed all of my decisions for wanting to be a producer and wanting to record with people. And I think I realized that when it comes to producing, that when someone shows me their demo, um, I start to hear music on top of their music. Like I'll hear like the radio play over their song. And that's something that I realized kind of much later that was happening. I couldn't really explain it for a while, what I was feeling that made me feel so excited to work on people's songs. But that's kind of what I realized later was happening after doing it so many times. And once I realized there was a part of me that was just kind of dying to give my shot with somebody's song. I realized that I could do this with any genre, any band, any artist, and it kind of snowballed from there in a way.
What is a genre that you have yet to work on that really intrigues you?
That's a good question. I've done stuff in jazz. I recorded like a jazz trio. I'd like to do something that is a little bit more like well, I grew up really loving like James Brown. I really love like that level of like funk. And I'm a huge Sly and the Family Stone fan. I would love to record like a band, like someone like Duran Jones, Vindication, someone like that, where it's like there's like a soulness to it that is because I've made a lot of like soul singles over the years because just me kind of layering it. I have such an appreciation for that genre and that sound, especially with the equipment and the abilities that I have and the instruments. A lot of that is very much pulled out of that Stax Motown kind of world. Um, but the ability to record like say a band with like say a full horn section would be something. Now I don't do many. Honestly, a lot of what I do is a little less because of how I record. It's a little less like all at once and a little bit more like okay, let's start with drum and bass or let's start with piano and build it. That's how I tend to make records. I tend to like making records with solo artists more than I do with a band because of that. But I think in a world where the band was say something that I was trying to capture, say like the Stooges, where there's the live element is where the live element is like what's for sale in a sense. Like putting the miking the PA a la Stooges, or giving the live sound being it. that's somewhere I'd like to move at some point. But I just love the ability for us to like kind of, Lego a song, and let the gut kind of guide the song versus trying to build the whole composition and capture it live. I tend to do the former. Um, but I do think that in a world where I was to get more equipment, and abilities and maybe more space, I think the other route is certainly of interest. I know a lot of people do obviously do that, capture the band being the band. I tend to want to do a little bit more. Let's piece it.
It's a really interesting way of putting, um, or speaking about the Stooges on an album. I think that's a great way of putting it. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, it's pretty on par to like this is kind of a live, not even just live recording, but live like in the context of seeing them.
I think that was Funhouse, or I don't know which it was, or Search and Destroy. Something that they did. They couldn't get the sound, and I believe they had them just do it like a show. They set up a stage and they recorded it live and mic'd the PAs as well as everything, and they got like this very real thing. And like there's something about that that has always, again, and same thing with like James Brown, those records that are just like so live. Or something like Get Back, where it just has a life to it. I tend to do it the different way, where we're kind of thoughtfully building it.
Yeah.
um I
And
think
by
that
the way,
has
it has to be Funhouse. That has to be
I
the
think it's Funhouse, yeah.
it's gotta because
Yeah,
think about that now, as you said that, I was like, yeah, that really does feel like with all the yelps
yeah, yeah,
and all the strange noises in the background, that's gotta be that. Kevin,
yeah.
you really expanded my mind today, man. I can only take so much.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Um, i- is there a do you focus on the same aspects when you're recording each person? Does it differ between each person that comes in?
I have rules that I follow with each artist that I've kind of gravitated towards all the time. One of them is I don't really listen to demos until they're in the room with me. That's a big rule I have. I will not listen to your music earlier. Frankly, I won't even listen to what your older songs sound like. I don't want anything to really inform me. I want to hear it, and it's kind of goes back to what I said before. You play me your demo, either I hear the radio on it or I don't. If I don't, I'll say, what else you got? If I do, we'll go to town right then and there. What I hate the idea of, say I'm in the car hearing your demo and I have a million ideas what I want to do, what I want to do, what I want to do. And then it's like, okay, but you're going to be here in 2 months. So I'm just like, all of that excitement is just gone. And there's no intuition, there's no acting upon the feeling. The feeling is gone, and I have to replicate that later. And same idea. It's like if I hear it early and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll think like, okay, what else could I do? What else could I? And it's like that's not to me what I like about music. I like the ability to kind of stick and move and go with it, and act on a feeling. So that's a kind of a rule I've had with all of the artists that I work with is I won't really listen to stuff early. I want to be in the room. I want to see them do it, and then I want to just go. I actually recently realized that the same person that has that exact rule, and I didn't know this until I think last year, is Nile Rodgers has that exact rule that he doesn't want to hear anything until he's in the studio, so he can just play guitar and go. And I think there's a real value to that gut feeling and that kind of intuition. That's really a big rule for the studio. As far as like things I do that are the same, um, I tend to prioritize things like drums and rhythm instruments early on to make sure because it's hard to inject something in that later. Um, what I'll often do is have an artist lay down like a scratch instrument and a scratch vocal, to just give the what I call like the frame of the song, just so I can see where everything is. A lot of times I'm the one playing everything to it. So once I have the say the artist will play it on like guitar and they'll sing, then I can start to like build around that, and then eventually sometimes I'll replace those, sometimes I'll just leave those and make use of them, the scratch instruments. Most of the time we'll redo vocals because it's hard to do like thoughtful vocals to nothing there except your own instrument. It's much easier to sing to the track later.
Oh
But
yeah, I always thought about that. Like, I mean, I can only imagine just singing to nothing. Not even a.
Sometimes people do it. Sometimes we leave the scratches because they just have something, which is kind of the classic like studio problem. It's like it's almost like demoitis. You get attached to something that you did because you built things around it, or you're used to it. It's there for so long, it kind of becomes familiar. That could be a tough thing for both me and the artist to like be like, okay, we like these vocals now, but let's maybe try another one just to see if it any better. That was especially hard in the days of only tape when I would do that, because then we'd have to make the decision, okay, do we record over these vocals, or do we, and take a risk, or do we maybe make another track just for it, even though we're limited, so that
And
could be,
that's a big risk either way
yeah,
with tape. Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah. But sometimes, that's the fun of it. It's the decisions like that can really be, like, I think some artists get in their own head about tape and then before, and then they get here and they see the process, and it's not. I use my I use my Logic stuff very similar to tape, whereas I'm thinking of it. I don't use any like MIDI or anything that's like virtual instruments. I use all my tracks are blue, I guess you'd say, in Logic. But I really find that having the ability to fill the frame and think of it limitations is more important than anything. And I think that's Logic can have that, if you put them on yourself. My computer sucks. So my computer will literally not run with more than say 50 tracks. So I tend to opt for like 20, 30 tracks at most, like on my computer. So because of that, we have to make decisions. We have to think about how to say it in less, which I like, because I don't, when I'm mixing, if I'm mixing another artist and say they send me like 100 tracks, I literally cannot run it. So I'll ask them to group things down and give me more of a vision, because I'm not going to wade through 30 takes of guitars and 16 drum mics. When I mic drums, I have 4 tracks, maybe, usually 3, sometimes 4 or 5. If I get an instrument from people and there's like 10 drum tracks, I'm like muting half of them. Like I'm not interested in that much information.
And you
Uh,
only mic to this just underneath the snare only, all those
yeah,
four,
yeah,
right?
just
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah.
back of the head and the yeah, and then that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that's I think that's the professional way of
I
doing it.
also don't like hi hats. I don't like hi hats. I find that to be the silliest thing. When I see a hi hat mic, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, there's so many other overhead or snare. It should pick up the hi. I don't need more hi hat. Like, I've
What
never
it
said I need more hi hat in my life. I've always said I need less hi hat.
what if there's a tambourine on the top? What about that?
That's good. I like that.
Does
What do
that
you
change it? Does that change that for you?
No,
Then it
that's
has to
cool.
be mic'd.
Well,
Uh,
if there's tambourine, it would pick even more up in the snare mic. I mean, the way that I mic it would pick up in one of the other mics.
One
Yeah,
of the four underneath the snare. Yeah, yeah.
I don't even do
I,
undersnare.
I'm just giving you the
Okay,
business.
I can't tell.
Do you zone in on the same aspects when working on your own music and producing other people's music? Do you kind of do you hold yourself to the degree that you do when working with others in that capacity of the in the studio?
I think I'm a little bit more careless with my own music. I am like the opposite of a perfectionist. I really don't want to hear myself thinking. And I will do less takes for my own music than I will for other artists. I think for other artists, there's a little bit more at stake, obviously. And I want to make sure the vision's right, for them. And so I'll usually give a little bit more. For me, it's like, a lot more of me just kind of figuring out what I want to say in the moment, and I'll capture that pretty early on. I'm not like a first take best take, but it's like the first few. There's something there that I like, and especially if it's tape, I will almost never use multiple tracks on tape for takes. Say like 3 vocal takes. I won't do that for me. I will much rather use that track for something that might enhance, the track. So it's one of those things that, oh my god, I'm burping. just chugging Diet Coke in this interview. It's not a good look. Um,
I think
but
it's great. I think it's great, and I think we get the sponsorship now, so it's fine.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
good.
yeah. Oh yeah, do it. Um, yeah, I feel like for people's music, like I can be a little bit. Uh, I mean, a lot of people when I play again when I make their records, like they're coming to me because of what they like. Like I'm not a place that you might rent because you find it on Craigslist and you want a studio. Like people come here because they like the records I make, and so because of that, I almost think about their records as like extensions of the Rubber Band Gun catalog, especially people that are less of a band and more of, say, like a solo artist. I think there's an amount of people that really like what I do, and so because of that, again, it's me trying to be as natural to what I can be. At the same time, I think that a lot of my records have a sort of I wouldn't say sloppiness, but there's like an elasticity to them that not everybody might want. Where they're they can be kind of rough or a little bit strange. I don't like using the term lo-fi for my music. I've kind of co-opted the term mid-fi from other producers that I know that I think I live in that world where I'm not ever trying to make something lo-fi. Like I kind of just suck sometimes, and I'm a lot of the stuff that I use equipment wise is both good and bad, and so I find this kind of healthy dose of the two. But I think when people come here again, they don't really they don't want me to do anything different than how they've heard from my records. So I tend to try to approach it the same, but again, I think my own records, I'm a little bit rougher, and I'll do a couple less takes. I really though I love when I'm making records with people, and I'm able to just they kind of just let me go. Um, a pet peeve I have is when a band is here, and this not to shout out anybody that might
Please
work.
name. We gotta know the name,
Well, it's
dude.
not even. It's more so the
No,
hypothetical of somebody that
I'm,
might come.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
I like when this sounds really maybe messed up, but like I feel, and I've had a couple artists. It's funny. Tell other artists that are going to work here that this is the case. That like they might have parts in mind. This sounds pretty vain, but probably the part I'm going to make is going to be better than that part that they thought that they wanted to do. So when a band comes here and we're just retracking their demo to a T, it is the most painful thing it can happen to me. For me just to sit there and hit record while they retrack a slightly more analog version of their demo, unless the demo is so out of the park perfect, which is like it's happened maybe twice in my whole career where the demo was so, and I'll tell them that we need to do it this way. If they're insistent about things like that, it's a bad sign because it means that they're not there. It means that they're too close to it. It means that they've listened to this too much. They did too much prep work and they don't trust me. Trust is the biggest thing. When an artist comes here and they trust me, the music sounds better because it lets me do what I do. When they just let me cook, it is always the best records. And if we're retracking, it can be tough because it's like you're not using me right. Like I'm not a knobs guy. Like I do that. Like I turn the knobs and I get the sounds, but that's not where I am. Like I I take your demo and we can bring it somewhere you never thought. That's how you use me correctly. If you're just telling me to turn the knobs, I'll do it and I will do it to the best of my ability. But it takes a lot of time because half the time they do 30 takes of their bass part, which they probably had it close the second time. That's when I get a little bit like I'm doing this, kind of thing. Which is again records I made that have done that. They're not bad records. They're still great records. I don't think I put out and I don't if the record's really bad, which there's never really been one that I've worked on, in my opinion. I will go far to say this needs to be changed. But I think the stuff that becomes like next level stuff that inspires me is stuff where they let me cook, I let them cook, and we kind of go back and forth, and we yes and each other, right? That's to me where records are made. Um, and frankly, a lot of people that come in bands and the bass player took off work, so they have to get his thing. It's like that's the retracking thing that again doesn't make it a bad record, but it doesn't really represent why I do this. And I'm happy to indulge, but like I've had a couple times where a bunch of times where the band comes in and I just say, this sounds really messed up, but I just say to the bass player, can I just play for a second? And I play the bass and I play something very simple that just fits with the drummer, leaves space, doesn't step on toes, just feels occasionally melodic, reinforces the melody, like stuff like that, like reinforces the melody. Half the time, maybe it's just the root, right? It's just something simple. And the song just feels there. And everybody looks around like, okay, you play this live. Like they look to point to the bass, play this live now. And it's happened like a lot. And that's the tough thing with bands. There's egos, there's feelings, and I kind of feel bad in that moment for the bass player. It's nothing. It's just I do this every day. Like this is my job. So not saying I can always make a better bass part than the bass player. That's not the case. But I think I know how to serve the song in a way that I find sometimes bass players or drummers or guitar players, they're trying to essentially uh, they're trying to prove their worth in the band, right? They're trying to pull their weight. I'm trying to help get the song a song. So there's a bit of a fight there at times where they're trying to prove that they're a good musician. I'm trying to prove that the song needs to come first. So that's a problem I can have. But other than that, yeah, it's been I try to do what I do for my records essentially.
So trust is the most important part of producing music for you, being on the engineering side. You would say?
Yeah, I tell people I always make this dumb analogy that it's kind of like we're on this whitewater rafting ride, and you just need to kind of go with the flow, and you can't try to go back. Like we can't go back. Just go forward. If it doesn't sound good, we can deal with that later. Or if it's not feeling like not doesn't sound good, if it's not feeling right, maybe trust the process. If it still doesn't feel right in a half an hour, we'll see what's up and we can fix it, or we can try something else. But um, so many times I've had it where people voice something a little too early in the process, and it's like just trust it; it'll make sense. I'm not going to make a bad record for you. It's just this is where it's going.
Right.
And so yeah, it's never happened where they didn't later say, you know, you were right. It's I'm always at the end we make something that they like, and it works. But some people it's a tough part of the process to like not see the whole picture as an artist, because you want to I understand it, like they want to see their vision, and they want to understand it, but sometimes it's outside of their vision, their vision then I wouldn't say it becomes that, but it collides with it at a time that they won't expect.
What is the most important part of making your own music for you?
The most important part, um I hate to say it, this is something that one of my favorite producers is Chad Blake, who's a great producer, great engineer. He said something funny the other day that I saw in a video, that he says that lyrics don't matter because someone can hear your songs in another language or another country, and they can still feel what you're trying to say through the music. Even if it's in another language, you can hear a song in Italian, and you don't need to know the language, you can feel the emotion behind it. I understand that school of thought. I do find that in my age now, when I hear a line or a lyric that is so good it makes me laugh, I think that's to me what I'm in this for. And that's a rare thing from an engineer to say. I mean, engineers are like, I like the drum tones, right? Like those sounds to me are important vessels, but the humanity of music. When the AI comes, all this stuff, it's AI can make the guitar sound cool, right? I really don't think AI is going to do what, say, like, again, Cameron Winter is doing with lyrics, where he is saying things that feel, um, he had a lyric in the new album, his new Geese album, that was like, "I'm getting killed by a pretty good life," and I'm like, that's a great fucking lyric. I mean, like, that's a real lyric. I mean, that's just like, everybody can interpret it differently. It can make you feel something. I mean, there's so many lyrics of songs. Um, it's not a genius line of like, Bob Dylan, Tambourine Man verse 4, crazy sandcastle bullshit. It's not some imagery, but there's something behind that lyric that's like, a computer couldn't say that and have it mean what a human means. And so I think that lyrics to me have have always been important, but they've become more important over time. I think the ability for me to want lyrics that make me laugh has grown. And One of my good friends, Sam Sullivan, who's right now in my studio downstairs, my basement, recording right now in my basement as I'm doing this. He's working on his music while I'm doing this. He's an incredible lyricist, and as is my friend Emily in Star Wars. They are incredible lyricists. They make lines that to me, inspire me. I think lyrics inspire me more than anything, honestly. And I think the ability, I've listened to a lot of artists recently that you can tell they really take themselves seriously. I think that's a huge problem. Um, I I don't want to feel your sadness in your seriousness. I want to feel your sadness in your humor, in the way that you look at life. I want to feel a sense of optimism in your sadness. That doesn't need to mean I need to feel like a sense of relief or catharsis from your lyrics, but um, I don't want just sad music. That being said, I think there's a difference between being sad in the sense of just like bleak and boring, and having it be, I'm getting killed by a pretty good life, or these other lines about, there's another line in that new Geese album that had a similar sense of like dread, but it makes you laugh, and it makes you realize how life is. I think another problem I have with music nowadays is the lack of bridges. The bridge is the part of a song where you turn the camera or turn the lens on the listener, or say, oh, maybe I am this, or maybe I'm wrong. A dumb example. This isn't a bridge, but the ability for a song to grow is, this is so funny. Isn't like Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett, right? Like, what does he say? It's like, some people say there's a woman to blame, but I know with my own but I know, I don't know who's at fault. I don't know what the lyric is, right? By the end of it, every verse refrain of that, he's like, one point he's like, hell, it could be my fault. Then the last one's like, damn it, it is my fault. Like, the ability for a lyric to grow like that, and you hear the narrator or the writer like have the realization. That's what the kind of bridge used to be before the time of the verse refrain shifting to every new chorus. The bridge used to be the part where you're like turning it and thinking, maybe what I thought was this in the beginning wasn't that. Maybe I'm the problem, or maybe this is this. We don't have a lot of songs like that nowadays. The bridge is almost dead in that sense. I think that's a problem I have with when it comes to lyrics, because we need that release. Otherwise, it's just like built, tense energy, and then it doesn't go anywhere. So if you're gonna make like sad music that doesn't have the sense of humor, doesn't have a sense of worldliness, I don't feel like I can trust you because how sad you are. At least if you're doing that for the majority of a song, have a bridge that feels like you're turning the pressure off a little bit and you're letting it out a bit. I think a lot of artists have that problem, and it's like the listener is just like, I mean, they don't realize it, but I think the listener is like, it's not giving them what music should be giving them. I think the big thing I have with talk about trust as well is like the trust in the songwriter, that like, even if they take you down like a sad alley, you're in their hands to take care of you, even through the darkness. I mean, Paul Simon does that incredibly well. Joni Mitchell does that incredibly well. It's tough. I think lyrics are where I really find this feeling, though.
Kevin, I appreciate you coming on here, sir. I
I'm
really
talking my
do.
ass off. Sorry, I just go, go,
No,
go.
that
It's
that
the
no,
Diet Coke.
it's good. And you know what? And you can only get that with Diet Coke, and we love them here. Proud sponsor of the podcast.
Mm,
No, but Kevin, thank you very, very much for coming on here. But before I let you go, we got some promo to do here.
go for it.
Rubber Band Guns music is streaming everywhere, wherever people get their music.
Yes, yes. A new album I have, Record Deal with God, comes out on all streaming October 23rd. Right now it's on Bandcamp. Bandcamp is my kind of my hub, but you could find me everywhere you find music, really.
Right on. Well, that's at rubberbandgun.bandcamp.com.
Yeah.
And Historic New Jersey is the recording studio. And for more information, people could follow the Instagram. Is that the best place?
Yeah, Instagram it's K Basko, Basko, K Basko on
Right
Instagram.
on. And for the recording studio, it's at Historic New Jersey
Yep,
on
yep.
Instagram as well.
Jersey,
Both
yep.
of those. And one more time with the release of the new album.
So
You
that's
said
October
October
23rd, 23rd. If it
23rd.
all goes well with the praise be the algorithm that it grants me my release date correctly. Praise be October 23rd, all streaming. And yeah, and there'll be I have another record coming out. Well, I have a record that's going to hit Bandcamp in November. A little. What's the word? A little. I haven't told anyone this. There's a record I made with a documentary that
Oh,
filmed the documentary. Essentially, a guy came from Texas to shoot a documentary about my process. I made an album from scratch without any pre-written material. The whole idea was that I didn't write a single thing before, and he recorded the whole process of me essentially making an album from scratch. And this was also done the way I mentioned before, all the tape, no computer, mixed down from tape. So this was a bit of a throwback to my old style. And halfway through the record, I realized that it is a concept album about chess. So it is a chess concept record, which again harkens to some of my early RBG albums that had a very strong sort of ham-fisted concept. So that's going to be out next month. No, actually in November, only on Bandcamp for a while, but that'll also be accompanied with a documentary about how I made it.
right on. Well, and everybody can stay up to date with everything like that by following you on Instagram. And one more time, that's at K Basco on Instagram.
My dog.
And this is a good way to cap it off.
Hell yeah.
Kevin, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute. All right.
Hell yeah. Thanks, man.